Matthew.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council regular meeting this evening. Can we do roll call, please?
Roll call. Mayor Garrett.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Here.
Councilmember Jennings. Councilmember Canes.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
I invite everyone that's in the audience and council to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and then we will go into the outgoing officials' comments. We can start from my left.
Right, Barb, do you want to go first?
Nope.
I'm fine. I'll go first. Good evening, everyone. I guess I do need this water. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone who supported Canes, Miller, and Weeks. You know who you are, and your support meant everything. The positive energy, the boots on the ground, the kind notes and messages, the hugs and the laughs. I may have lost an election, but I gained more than I could ever imagine in new friendships. Thank you for the opportunity to serve these past 2 years. Karen and I were able to put a finger in the dam. Despite every effort to silence and discredit us, we were able to give you back your voice. You were able to decide the fate of cannabis in Lathrup Village, not a group of self-servants and community activists. Parks and Rec activities resumed with resident-driven input and participation. Fun and laughter returned with neighbors attending breakfast with the bunny, bingo, and trivia nights. Road trips to Meadowbrook Gardens and the Detroit Zoo were thoroughly enjoyable and memorable. They say you're never too old to learn something new. I learned a lot these past 2 years. I learned politics attracts an unusual number of narcissists. Narcissists don't play nice. When the world revolves around you, you do anything and everything to protect your tiny little world and reputation, including attempts to intimidate and ruin the reputation of others. Unfortunately, honesty and positivity did not prevail. We are left to deal with the aftermath of a hateful and divisive group. That said, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'm emboldened. A light was shed, and a once small group of concerned citizens has exploded. This is the bright spot. An awakening has taken place in Lathrup Village. It's time to get involved. We need commissions and committees like never before. The city needs oversight. I recommend forming a financial committee, an ethics committee, a communications committee, a parks and rec committee, a tree committee, and a veterans committee. This is our city, and we get to decide what happens here. We need to watch the budget and these officials like a hawk. In addition, I would like to congratulate Dalton Barksdale. I remain hopeful in his ability to unite this fractured community. Jalen, wherever you are, I appreciate your efforts and support these past 2 years. I have faith these gentlemen will remain true to their callings as public servants. They have my confidence and support. This is a call to action. Now more than ever, we need to be informed, to be involved, and to be vigilant. Show up and speak up. Never forget, the people sitting here before you made a promise to serve you, our community, our home. From my family to yours, may you have a blessed and peaceful Thanksgiving and holiday season. Lathrup Village will recover. I promise I will do my part to see that it does.
First of all, I would like to thank the residents that supported my efforts and trusted that I had their best interest at heart. I'd like to thank the residents that encouraged me to continue to ask questions and to keep going when it was particularly hard to put myself out here meeting after meeting. I'd like to thank my friends that were gracious enough to listen and offer help when I was discouraged. And I especially like to thank my daughters, Lauren and Lisa, who supported me even when they asked me not to run again, and I didn't listen. When I ran in 2021, I promised to focus on fiscal responsibility, transparency, resident engagement, and city services. I believe that we as a community should take a holistic look at our infrastructure system so we could deal with things like the lack of water pressure to put out fires and the almost $2 million water loss. I believe that strong community programs hold the community together, so I wanted to push for strengthening our Parks and Recreation Department. In spite of the concerted effort to withhold important information from me and all the personal attacks, I tried my best to stay focused on my promises. I had a lot of damaging information I could have released, but in what I thought was the best interest of the community, I chose not to. Much of that information is now contained in my Truth About website pages on our campaign website, and I intend to continue to publish information that is important to residents. I hoped my questions and concerns would encourage council members and staff to do the right thing and bring the focus back to residents. Sadly, that didn't happen, and ironically, I feel things have actually gotten worse in many ways. The last 8 weeks have been particularly rough, dealing with the hate-filled yellow card propaganda campaign. I deactivated my Facebook account, hoping the rhetoric would die down, but it only escalated. I did spend time working on the Truth About pages on our campaign website to try and refute the distorted information and lies put out by the group officially formed by Mike Keenan, and to arm residents with context on issues like a large section of our community not having enough water to put out fires. But with members of this group, including the Mayor Pro Tem, past council members, and a new council member to be sworn in this evening, having woven a narrative over the last 2 years that labeled me as a racist, a bully, a grifter, misinformed, and a whole list of other derogatory things, it was impossible to overcome the lies and the damage done to my reputation. Ultimately, I fear the vast majority of my fellow residents, as well as our beloved city, will suffer as a result of their deceptive campaign that resulted in the election of this council. I don't see an end to the continued misuse of power and unchecked access to city resources. At tonight's regular meeting, a draft 2022-2023 audit report will be presented. It is the worst audit report I have seen since I began studying the audits starting in 2017-2018. I have to believe that this information was purposely held until after the election, as many of the concerns I have expressed over the last 2 years are reflected in the deficiencies and material weaknesses found by Plant and Moran's audit. In fact, despite my request for access to these audit results being pushed down the road, I've now been made aware that the Mayor Pro Tem had access to this information prior to our October 16th meeting. Yet again, another example of unequal and preferential access that's given to some council members but not all. According to Plant and Moran, there continues to be issues with segregation of duties, reconciliation of bank statements, lack of controls to prevent or detect errors, interfund balances and transactions such as between the DDA and the general fund, between the bond and millage funds and the general fund, between the water fund and the general fund. Receivables and payables reconciliation to the general ledger not happening is creating a risk of inaccurate financial reporting. Credit card documentation, the same thing I asked about last year, actually when I first came on council, there's still issues with that. There's lack of guidance on significant activity related to conference and travel reimbursement. These are all things I have tried to address and correct, and my efforts have been met with eye rolls, gavels, tears, accusations of racism, accusations of bullying and abuse, demands that I attend training, and ultimately the yellow card campaign and my defeat. Because I recognize the opportunity for abuse regarding conference attendance, training, travel, memberships, etc., it was upon my request that it was put into Susan Montenegro's contract that conferences and related expenses, such as travel, training, professional and memberships and subscriptions, and participation and involvement in civic and local organizations was subject to city council approval. I believe this was a good way to make sure that these opportunities aligned with and supported goals for our community and our residents. When I asked for enforcement of these clauses in her contract, Susan accused me of trying to change her contract, and City Attorney Baker told me the only control we had was through the amount we budgeted. The most disturbing thing in this report is the fact that our fund balance is down to $583,287. That is $287,032 less than what we were told was our beginning balance when that budget was approved, the 2023-2024 budget was approved. I was concerned when it was at this $800,000 level. Now that it's down to only $583,000, I believe we have some real problems. Remember when I voted no on the 2022-23 budget, and I was chastised and belittled and accused of attempting to shut down the city? Remember when I questioned across-the-board salary increases of 5% and 3% and was described as bullying staff and creating a hostile work environment? Remember when I voted no on the 2023-24 budget and was told I didn't know how to read a budget and I needed training? What is going to happen now with these real numbers that we did not have? I am not sad to be leaving City Council. I am sad that some individuals chose to use race to divide our wonderfully diverse and special community. This was particularly hurtful to my daughters and me, as we have actively fought racism and prejudice all the years we have lived here. In 2018, I wrote, I raised my daughters in Lathrup Village, and their experiences in our richly diverse community have contributed to the great success that both achieved as adults. I want to be a part of maintaining the richness of Lathrup Village for current and future residents, contributing to building economic stability and fostering strong relationships. This is certainly not how I have been portrayed. I am sad that I was unable to have a positive impact on the most dysfunctional organization that I've ever been involved with. I'm sad that most residents are still disregarded in an effort by council and staff to pursue personal agendas. I hope the Lathrup Village we love will resurface, but after fighting for it over the last 2 years, I am not optimistic. That said, it is more important than ever that residents remain vigilant, continue to ask questions, and demand transparency and accountability from council members and staff. As it is likely we will see far too many 5-0 votes and unchecked power being exercised over the next 2 years. I have lots of questions regarding the October disbursements tonight that I won't be able to ask. I hope that somebody else will.
So well, and here we are. This has been the most tumultuous 2 years of my entire life.
Wait a minute, this doesn't happen, I don't think. I think we get to speak, we don't have to be reprimanded, scolded, whatever, and we can leave. And then you can say whatever you would like.
I'm an outgoing council person,
Oh,
and so I
going
get to
in and
comment
coming.
also. So,
Okay, sorry.
Okay. This has been the most tumultuous 2 years of my entire life. I've served Lathrup Village for 12 years as best as I knew how. Every day for the last 2 years, regardless of what has happened in my personal life, I showed up. And I showed up for every single person, whether you called me every single name, you said that I should quit because of my grief, said that I was tired because of everything that I'm going through. But guess what, again, I showed up every single day for Lathrup Village and did my best. The one thing that I'm also taught is that my parents taught me that if you've done something wrong, that you hold yourself accountable and you apologize. And there's many times sitting on this council, to my fellow council people, that's happened. When we started out on this council, it was already a rocky road. When we were going through the whole election, it was a rocky road. And I'll be honest, and I'll hold myself accountable, that I didn't handle it right when we first started. But then I understood the fact is that you're gonna have a lot of slings and arrows, and you're gonna have a lot of people that dislike you. But one thing I was also told is that if you do right by the people, you're gonna have a lot of haters anyway. But if I did wrong by you and I did not stand up for myself or other people in this council or staff, then nobody would care. And so when I was getting prepared for the speech today, and I was gonna do all of, defending myself because I knew that that was coming, that I would have to defend myself. And I said, there was something that somebody sent me that I absolutely would love to share with each one of you all, and perhaps you would take this to heart. And that is a story about an eagle and a crow. Crows peck at your neck, or at the neck of an eagle, and they irritate him. And they try to take him down. And what the eagle does is, instead of trying to get the crow off of his back, it soars up to a whole nother level, and it keeps ascending and ascending, no matter what is happening to them. And they get to a point where the crow cannot breathe, and it falls off. So the next time another crow comes, it knows exactly what it needs to do because it learned from the previous crow pecking at its neck. So I say all of that is because regardless of how anyone feels, even how the vote goes tonight, I'm still ascending, because I'll tell you this, what I have, and I wrote this down, most people drown in the water that I floated in. So if you can walk in my shoes for just one moment, for even a second, between the council, between losing my only child, between the harassment of lots of people, between the hateful words that were said to me, but I'm still here. And guess what? Lathrup Village voted for me to be the #1 vote getter in the city. So I thank you all who supported me, and I really, with all my soul and all my heart, I really appreciate the ones that didn't support me, because you made me stronger. And where you thought that you were gonna make me weak, it just gave me new building blocks to use in my next adventures. So again, I thank every single one of you all, and I appreciate the support again, and I look forward to the next 4 years as your councilwoman in Lathrup Village. So thank you. I'll take the motion to do sign and die for the 2021-2023 City Council.
Motion for adjournment, sign die of 2021-2023 City Council.
I'll second it. Thank you.
Mayor and council, we will take a 5-minute break while we do switch.
Can't tell who you are. Oh, yeah.
Right.
I'm surprised you knew who I was.
You're around the circle, and I wondered if you were going into the old house in the woods for when I walk in the morning. Is that okay?
I invite people.
Oh, okay, good. I wanted to ask your permission about
Yes,
that.
no.
Okay, 'cause it's beautiful. I mean, it's nice that there's a clearing and that I can actually
I'm
walk.
trying to clear the whole area.
Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
No problem.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm right here.
Hey, Kelly.
How are you?
Okay. Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Pastor Scotty, you okay? Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Okay, so I'll make it between A and B. Then 8 and 9.
Oh, no, you have to do it. We changed the time. I gotta be honest, we changed the time for them, so. I'll be here maybe in about 45 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Fine. He's ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the order the meeting of the 2023-2025 council meeting. Roll call. Mayor Garrett,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Here.
Councilmember Barksdale,
Here.
Councilmember Jennings, Councilmember Hammond. Present. Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to excuse Councilmember Jennings.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Can you take roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilmember Barksdale,
Here?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond. Yes. Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, I want to make a motion to amend the agenda. This will get a little confusing, but starting out by adding.
What?
Office before we can.
We have to administer the
Oh,
oath
oh,
of
she
office
did.
to everybody on council.
No, you don't, okay.
No, do it one at a time. Councilmember Barksdale, if you join me.
Yeah, over there.
Do I take this with me, or?
No,
Okay.
that's long.
Raise your right hand. I, Dalton Barksdale,
I, Dalton Barksdale,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village,
and I will discharge my duties
and I will discharge my duties
as council member for the City of Lathrup Village,
as council member for the City of Lathrup Village,
Michigan,
Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Councilmember Hammond. Please raise your right hand. I, Jason Hammond,
I, Jason Hammond,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrop Village,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village,
and I will discharge my duties as City Council member
and I will discharge my duties as City Council member
for the City of Lathrop Village, Michigan,
for the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Mayor Garrett.
Look, I'm too excited.
See, that's all you asked for.
Oh, you're good. I, Michael Garrett,
I, Michael Garrett,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrop Village,
the Charter and the ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
and I will discharge my duties as City Council member
and I will discharge my duties as City Council member
for the City of Lathrop Village, Michigan,
for the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my ability.
Now, Mayor Pro Tem, we can do your
Yeah,
motion.
so now I'm going to make a motion to amend the agenda, starting out with adding approval of the Community Development Block Grant as item 18A.
17.
On mine, it's 18, but action requests are 18. The public hearing is 17A.
16 on ours, public hearing.
Oh, well,
Must
something
be a
must have
mistake.
changed since
Yes.
since I printed mine out. Okay,
Yes.
so what did we, so 17?
So it's 17.
And then moving, moving 17C to 17B, so that's the 11 Mile Road discussion, considering that the audit is probably gonna be a lengthy discussion, that way the city engineer doesn't have to stay for all of that. Moving 18A to 18C, so that's the audit, approval of the audit. And then lastly, moving 18B to 18D, which is the negotiation of the compensation package for the city administrator-elect. And then, so that's gonna be number, then adding 14B, which is the presentation of the audit.
Second.
The only modification I'd suggest to that be that the city administrative negotiations review that I've received a correspondence from him requesting that that matter be remain confidential, so that would be a closed session.
Yeah, I made that last, so we can go to closed
Okay,
session last.
and just noting it for the agenda, that will be closed session.
Okay, so hopefully you remember that. Good, so you move this.
Yep. I'll write it out.
Madam Clerk, you're gonna do the election results?
Yes. Election results for the November the 7th, 2023 general election. Dalton Barksdale, 566 votes. Michael Garrett, 892 votes. Jason Hammond, 752 votes. Barbara Canez, 488 votes. Karen Miller, 474 votes. Alan Weeks, 516 votes.
Thank you. So we're gonna still, we already are in order, so I don't have to call it again, right?
Was there, did we vote on this?
The what?
We didn't vote on his
His
motion.
motion.
There was no
Oh.
second on the motion.
Second.
Jason
Oh,
Hammond.
his second.
I'm sorry, there was no vote. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call
Roll
for that.
call. Councilmember Hammond,
Yes.
Councilmember Cantor,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor, I apologize. Mayor Garrett,
Yes,
Councilmember Barksdale,
Yes.
Madam Mayor, motion carried.
thank you. And then we need the approval of the agenda as modified.
That's what that was.
That's-
That was
That's
that?
what
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna make another motion, because I
Yeah,
realized I
yeah,
forgot
that's
to
right, okay.
do something else.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna move the election of mayor and mayor pro tem to, between item 17 and item 18. So between action requests and discussion items.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Garrett,
Yes,
Councilmember Hammond,
Yes.
Councilmember Barksdale,
Yes.
motion carried.
thank you. Now we have public comments for items on the agenda, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes only. If anybody wants to speak, can I do this? Yeah. You wanna come to the mic?
He's just kidding us.
Oh. If anybody wants to speak, you wanna, like, I don't know. Come to the microphone and state your name, please. Anybody wants to speak about anything that's on the agenda.
Ian Ferguson, Lathrup Village. I just want to express my appreciation for Barb Canez, who I'm not sure if you guys realize it was very difficult for her to get out of her comfort zone and actually run for an election. Extremely difficult for anybody to do under certain circumstances. I think she did the job that she set out to do, and I appreciate what she did. As far as Karen, I appreciate what she did. She saw a need to run to try to help the city, and I could recognize that. I also want to state to Karen that, Karen, I don't hate you, I just hate sometimes the way you make me feel. And a lot of people feel that way. I get emotional whenever I think about how I tried to partner with Karen, but under certain circumstances, it's just a bridge too far sometimes. I hope that we can get past this. I hope this new council will be held accountable, because I will hold you accountable, every single one of you. I want you to do the right thing, and part of that is bridging the gap that we have with other people on the other side, which is what Barb Canez and Karen Miller stated. They have a coalition that believe in them, and I'm hoping that coalition can come to you, whether they're angry, whether they're upset, and deal with the fact that we're all sitting here in this city together, working together. Not just saying words that we want to work together, not saying that we're a diverse city, but really putting forth the effort, put the energy in to do that, okay? Again, I wish you guys all luck. Make sure you do the right thing, because I personally will hold you accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll go into the presentation of the Family Court Awareness Proclamation. And this this was, well, it is for the month of November. So I just read it. Whereas the mission of the Family Court Awareness Month Committee is to increase awareness on the importance of a family court system that prioritizes child safety and acts in the best interest of children. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is fueled by the desire to create awareness and change in the family court system for the conservatively estimated 58,000 children a year ordered into unsupervised contact with abusive parents, while honoring the 100 children who have been reported as murdered during visitations with a dangerous parent. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is to increase awareness on the importance of empirically based education and training on domestic violence and child abuse, including emotional, psychological, physical, and sexual abuse, as well as childhood trauma, coercive control, and post-separation abuse for judges and all professionals working on cases within the family court system. Whereas the mission of the FCAMC is to educate judges and other family court professionals on evidence-based, peer-reviewed research. Such research is a critical component to making decisions that are truly in the best interest of children. Therefore, I, Michael Garrett, Mayor of the City of Lathrup Village, and on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Lathrup Village, hereby declare the month of November to be Family Court Awareness Month. And next we have a presentation of the audit.
Madam Mayor, did you want to consent agenda first?
Consent agenda.
No, they moved it to.
The presentation is before that, yeah, the consent agenda is coming after.
Well, good evening. My name is Alicia Watkins. I am and have been working with the city for several years now. With me is Ashley Fraze, who's a manager in our practice.
Sorry, excuse me, Ms. Watkins, can you speak up?
Sure, let me move this a little bit. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, thank you. Should I start over?
Sure.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I could. Alicia Watkins with Plant Moran, a partner in a governmental practice, working with the city now for a few years. With me is Ashley Fraze, who's a senior manager in a governmental practice and has also been working with the city for several years. As always, we thank you and we appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all this evening. We appreciate the partnership and the ability to serve as your auditors. Our objectives for this evening's meetings is to talk through, of course, the results of the audit, to walk through some of the financial highlights, and we understand that there's a high interest in the audit results, and so engage in discussion as appropriate, and we'll take your lead on that. In terms of the deliverables, and I believe what council received in their packets today, we have a draft of the financial statements, which as we see it is effectively final. We plan on dating today. We don't anticipate any more changes. And so we'll call it a final draft. We also have a final draft of the letter, same thing. We don't anticipate any changes and we'll intend to date and finalize that as of today. And so what we'd like to do, rather than walking through the full set of financial statements as we've done in the past, we've put some of the financial highlights here in the slide deck. We'd like to walk through that first, and then on the back end of that, we'll go ahead and walk through the audit communication and the findings. I did want to just mention a couple things on the financials since we won't be going through those. If you take a look at the financial statements, we do compile those for the city based on a trial balance that we receive from you, but really it is the city's financial statements. It's your numbers, it's your data. We just compile them as a matter of convenience. The only thing in that set of financial statements that belongs to Plant Moran is the opinion that we issue. And what that opinion tells you is that your audit is what we call now an unmodified opinion. The verbiage has changed over the years. It essentially means the opinion is without exception. And so although you'll see in the audit results we did have some proposed journal entries and corrections, because those were all made as required and in accordance with GAAP, we were then on the back end able to issue a clean opinion. It is the highest level of assurance that you can receive on your set of financial statements. It's candidly what you should expect as a governing body, and it means the financial statements can be relied upon as issued. I think I'll stop there and have Ashley come up and walk us through the financial highlights. I don't know if I put that slide on this. Arrow right or down? Either. Oh, there it goes. Okay. All right. So on this first slide, this is the governmental fund revenues for fiscal year ended June 30, 2023 on the far right, and the historical trends over the past 3 years prior to that. The revenue categories are broken up in different colors on the pie chart. You can see property taxes continues to be the largest revenue source. In the teal bar there, increased about $170,000 for fiscal year 2023. I did want to point out in 2021, the large dark blue navy color, that is the bond proceeds, so the bond issuance in fiscal 2021, and as a result, that's recorded in your governmental funds as a revenue source, and as the city spent down those funds over the past few years, we'll cover on the next slide those expenditures. The spending of those bond dollars for the capital use. Any questions on revenues? All right, so again, the governmental fund expenditures, so these are again, all the governmental funds of the city. June 30, 2023 is on the far right. Really, like I mentioned on the previous slide, that other category, which is in the gray, did increase since 2021 and in 2022 and 23. That does relate to the capital spending. So the majority of that increase was capital outlay, as those bond dollars have been spent down through June 30 of 23 for those various capital projects throughout the city. All of the remaining expenditure categories remained relatively consistent. Total expenditures did increase about $3.4 million, again, largely related to the capital spending. Any questions up there? All right, so the next two slides really focus on kind of where the city's two largest revenue streams have been and kind of looking forward. So this one is total taxable value as it relates to property taxes of the city. As I covered, property taxes is the city's largest revenue source. So when you look back, the far left of this is 2006. So those were the taxable values at that point in time. You can see with where we all know the market went in about 2008. It has taken some time for to get back to those levels, and the city's not even quite there yet. So there are limitations on taxable value increases related to Proposal A and Headley in the state. So looking forward, if you project a 2.5% increase annually, even since 2023 and forward, it'll be closer to about I think it's 2028 before the city gets back to that same taxable value base level at that 2006, 2009 point in time before it took that decline. So just a perspective, an estimate of 2.5% increase annually, just a perspective on, the impact of that and, how the city's outlook related to taxable value and property taxes, the limitations there.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention too that how that affects our revenue, because we hear consistently from our residents, well, we used to do this and we used to do all these types of things that we're not doing now. A large portion of that has to do with the fact that we're not going to be at back at our 2008 revenue pre real estate crash until 2028, roughly 2028, and that's assuming the 2.5% growth. So I think that's a really important point for residents to understand, because it has a huge effect on our, on our revenue. People think, well, the crash was back in 2008. Well, that was, how many years ago is that? 15 years ago. We should be long recovered, but because of Prop A, we're not, and we're not going to be for a while. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I know you brought up real estate, and as your residents and community members see taxable values from a real estate or property values from a real estate perspective goes up, those are limited related to the city's ability to the taxable value for property tax revenues.
And then the city's second largest governmental revenue stream is revenue sharing from the state. So it was about 500,000 of revenue sharing dollars came into the city for fiscal 2023. But there were decreases, you can see, since 2001. And so, you know, a little bit different stream of revenues other than property taxes. But again, getting back to that 2001 level, it's almost there as of June 30, 2023. So limitations related to state shared revenue that the state is passing through to the city has, you know, declined over the years. It's getting back towards those 2001 levels just at the end of June 30, 2023. So taking all that into consideration, this is just the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the city, and the fund balance at June 30, 2023. So on the far right, you can see in the blue teal color, those are the annual expenditures of the general fund. And as I mentioned, there are, you know, the last 2 years, quite a bit of capital expenditures in that number, but at about $5.7 million for June 30, 23. And a common factor when you look at, you know, those are expenses and where is our fund balance at, the available or unassigned fund balance of the general fund at June 30th was about $391,000, which is about 7% of the annual expenditures of the general fund. So while those capital expenditures aren't, you know, all recurring, just being, when you're looking at that percentage, it's about 7%. The city did plan in budget for fiscal 23 to use fund balance in the general fund. It did come in, you use a little bit more than had planned, but I think just continuing to monitor and look at, you know, the expenses looking forward and where that fund balance is at each year when, you know, when looking at the budget and monitoring it throughout the year. So this last slide is a summary of the two long-term liabilities of the city, which are the pension liability and retiree healthcare liability, which is also termed OPEB. So we have these pie charts on here. So the left chart is the total pension liability of the city. So this is measured by an actuary, but essentially the pension benefits that have been granted for current and retirees of the city that are eligible for the pension benefits, those are estimated, you know, how long those people are in service, and that's the total long-term liability of about $9 million. The city does have dollars set aside in the MERS pension plan of about $6.1 million, and so the pension plan's about 68% funded. I did want to point out that the pension is measured as of December 31st each year, so this, given the time lag as provided by the accounting standards and the time for the actuary to do the calculations, this is as of December 31st, 2022. And if we can all think back where the market was at in that time, so that those investments that are held are subject to market fluctuation. So at that point in time, the funded percentage had decreased since the prior year measurement. In the issuance of that, it comes out in June each year. So looking forward, I would assume as those investments are held in the long term, your funding percentage will get back up closer to, you know, or we won't have that impactful unrealized loss for that period in your next measurement as of December 31st, 2023. Given where the market's at, will likely be a little bit in a more funded level with those investments that the city has made with that MERS plan. The total OPEB liability is on the right, so this one, the total liability is about $3.5 million. The city does have about $411,000 set aside for that, so about 12% funded, and this one is measured as of June 30th, 2023. You may be asking yourself, you know, the difference between pension and OPEB funding, why there's such a disparity in, I guess, percent funded. So across the state, you would typically see these trends. The OPEB payments aren't statutorily required, so the communities haven't been in the past, prior to the past 2 years, the state has built in a requirement under Public Act 202 to fund a portion of the OPEB liability. There has been no requirement to do so prior to then. The pension liability, the city has always been required, or all communities in the state have been required to make those. So the city did set aside some money in a trust for the OPEB liability about 4 or 5 years ago, and as those investments are held and continue to set some extra dollars aside to help fund that liability. But it is, gonna take a little bit more time, like getting momentum towards that liability as those assets sit in trust and you contribute to it. That was the end of our planned financial slides presentation. I think I'll turn it over to Alicia unless there's any questions at this point in time.
There is one thing in my opening comments that I did forget to mention, and that is just that I did want to acknowledge and thank Pam for working with us to get another audit done. And I know the result isn't always what everybody wants, but I want to acknowledge that a ton of time and effort goes into getting to this point. And I'd say for the past couple of years, we've seen firsthand you working around the clock, night and day, weekends and everything else, trying to keep a lot of things afloat. And, I think sometimes when you're doing that, things are just going to fall. And so I know I feel like I'm picking up where I left off with you all last year. The question that I was asked last year at the end of the presentation is, what is going on? Why are we having some of these issues? And what I said to the group last year is I would say it's largely a resource issue. And I would give you the same thing at the onset of our discussion this evening. But what we see is it's certainly not for a lack of trying to do the right thing and hard work. So thank you for your hard work. You've been great to work with. You've been professional and helpful and committed, and we appreciate it.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay, I'm gonna dive right into this letter here. Are we gonna bring it up on the screen, or should I just, I think council members have it in front of them and that's gonna be sufficient?
Yeah, I don't know if we have it on the screen.
Which page?
So, section, 1, which is, this meets our requirement. I mean, our requirement is to issue communication directly to those charged with governance, and we have done that, so happy to talk through it here. The letter, as you may recall, if I just started here on the first page of the draft, the cover page does have several communications combined into one. So section 1 is the aspect of the letter that does include our findings, and we'll start there. Section 2 is a required communication that is issued for every single audit that is performed. Whether or not we have findings or issues, we are required to issue that communication in section 2 to the governing body. And then section 3 are what I'll call just other matters of interest that we felt warranted the attention of the governing body and of management. And so we'll touch on a couple things in that last section, and then some of the other information we'll just leave for your reference. I apologize, I'm realizing the pages aren't numbered as I'm getting into it, so I'm going to start the second page in, which is the top of section 1. The first part of the letter, first half of the letter even, is just kind of giving the definitions of material weaknesses and internal controls. Those have not changed in our profession for several years. So if we kind of go down to where the findings start, we are starting with an item that we've talked about in recent years, which is bank reconciliations and segregation of duties. And I would sort of boil that first section down to a couple of themes, if you will. The first is the timely preparation and review of bank reconciliations. Whenever we're talking about kind of management, monitoring, reconciling cash, there's always going to be a low threshold for, what becomes a material matter. And so anytime bank recs fall behind, or you have vacancies and now you don't have a second person reviewing the bank recs, that's almost always going to be a material weakness, just because it does create an environment where errors or misappropriation could go undetected. The second theme is a lack of segregation of duties, which is also not a new discussion item. And again, that's why I said at the onset, a lot of these come down to resource issues. When you have limited folks doing everything, this is what happens. You don't have the ability to effectively segregate responsibilities. I would say that risk becomes exacerbated when you have turnover, and then you have vacancies and so forth, and you've dealt with some of that over the past couple of years. So we'll continue, to monitor and report those items and bring them to your attention as we go forward. The second item, Ashley had mentioned that the city did set up a trust fund a few years ago to now track the assets being compiled for against the OPEB liability. So those statements do come in quarterly, and so our recommendation is that those are getting updated quarterly. Because it's a newer item in recent years, it is not part of the regular kind of month or quarterly closing process, and so we would like to see that get added now to at least a quarterly basis rather than just doing it on an annual basis now that activity in there is kind of steady and recurring. I'm turning now to the next page. The top item talks about pooled cash.
Can we ask questions as they go along?
Oh, yeah, do you want me to go back?
Well,
Sure.
no, I just, the one in the bank reconciliation, the one thing, I know, the former city administrator, after, a couple months after the prior audit, had indicated to us that reconciliations were being done. Can you please turn that light off? Was being done that they were being done 30 to 45 days. So has that not been happening? I mean, we were told that it was.
It was, I was working with Jessica on them to, I'm still working with her to get all the information for her and that, so they were not done. I mean, maybe a couple of months were, but not. You have a microphone? No, I do not have a microphone. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just surprised because, I mean, our city administrator had said that was happening, so, thank you.
Anything else on those items before we move on? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, absolutely.
So are there restrictions or guidelines or best practices around, if we're going to be distributing the workload of doing these reconciliations across more than one or two people?
Sure.
Like, can you have other people that are in the city staff that aren't necessarily in the treasurer's office help with the reconciliations? As a best practice?
Possibly. So I think you want to be, continue to be very cautious and selective around access to cash, certainly, right? That sort of goes without saying, I think. And so we do want to continue to limit the number of people that are collecting cash, the number of people that are able to disperse cash. We also want to limit the number of people that can modify transactions in the system, right? However, you certainly can consider whether it's appropriate for folks outside of kind of your small finance treasury department to have a role in the bank rec process, which could be maybe reviewing the bank recs or doing some component of the reconciliation process. Here's my caution to you. That would be a control, right? Having somebody else look. The control needs to be effective, right? So you need to have somebody that understands what they're looking at, right? So if you kind of grab somebody who's, I don't mean this disparagingly, but like maybe they're an engineer, right? Like if you put me in an engineer's role, like I would have no idea. I would be like, I can't look at his work, her work, I don't know what it means, right? So maybe somebody could be very talented in their field, whether it's public safety, whether it's engineer, whatever, but would they know what to look for in a bank rec, right? So that's my caution, that it really is important that we start to think about not just the layers in the eyes, but the effectiveness of them. And so having folks that have some experience or that maybe can learn over time. And we're happy to, have conversations off records about what that would be. But that's what you need someone that could pick up if something off, does it make sense? if we're stuck, what do we do? How do we fix this reconciling item that we're not sure, how to navigate? So that'd just be some things to consider.
Yeah, I think the crux of my question is around if there are discrepancies,
Yeah.
right? Then somebody could look at a bank statement and compare it to the expense report and see if there are discrepancies there, and then bring them to the treasurer and say, this looks fishy, could you please look into this? So that the treasurer wouldn't have to do it all by themselves.
Well, we do, just to let you know on how we have it divided right now amongst a lot of us, is Jacqueline at the front counter does most of our cash. Then Martha, who's doing our accounts payable, also does our bank recs for us. So that leaves Jessica out of the bank recs, or not out of the bank recs, I'm sorry, she does the deposits. So that leaves Jessica out of the deposits. Once in a while, Jessica might have to take cash over the counter, but we try to segregate those parts so that Jessica can work on bank recs. And then if I have the time to oversee those bank recs and that, then the manager would be the one signing off on them. But then you have to have your manager have kind of a finance or kind of some kind of background in accounting too, so that they can oversee them too and make sure that they're being done correctly.
Great, thanks for that.
Because if I'm helping with them, then I shouldn't be signing off on
No,
them.
of course, yeah, that's the segregation of duty
Right.
issue.
And with us not having a city manager right now, it's hard to pass it to somebody to say, here, sign off on this.
Yeah, understood.
So-
Okay, thanks for that, Pam.
You're welcome.
Anything else before we move on from these items? The next item gets into pooled cash, interfund transactions, and unspent bond proceeds. So, and we talked about this a little bit last year. Having pooled cash accounts is a very common thing amongst local units of government. Where we caution the city going forward is that as you have that, and again, a lot of this does come down to a resource issue, but making sure those things are getting reconciled and settled up, if you will, or trued up more timely, so that it's not kind of sitting, for the entire year. It becomes a little bit harder sometimes to unravel, and then, you kind of want to make sure that the cash and the expenses land where they're supposed to. And we believe that when you do that more timely, you're going to have a more effective result than when you're kind of looking at it for the whole year. So in the end, we felt comfortable that everything landed where it needed to and that the reconciliation was done accurately. We would like to see it done more timely, and we would like to see outstanding balances owed between the funds kind of settled up on a certain cadence, maybe quarterly or bi-monthly or something.
Can you talk a little bit to the potential risk of not doing that more regularly, more often?
So the risk is, so let's say as a matter of convenience, which again is common, most checks are cut out of the general fund, right? Because that's where the primary checking account, a lot of the activity is, it's sort of easier to manage. If we don't do the reconciliation, we perhaps run the risk of the general fund paying for something that should be getting paid for at a local and major or the bond funds, right? And so you want to make sure the funds are being spent where they're supposed to be and kind of land in the right spot.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
The next item, I'll call it minor. It's just, our books and records kind of got to start where we landed in the prior year, and you kind of turn over to the next day, and we had a variance that we had to work through. I don't see that as being kind of anything earth-shattering, but because it was an adjustment, we do have to make you aware of that. The third bullet on this same page, we do think there's an opportunity here. I think it's, when we have transactions that we're doing kind of weekly, monthly, regularly, those are typically just fine. But, as you go forth and make decisions about, grants and complex transactions and new projects and things like that, those come with unique accounting and reporting implications that, the team doesn't deal with all the time. But we, when we make those decisions, I guess the takeaway is to kind of pause and reflect on kind of what's the accounting reporting implication of this council-approved decision or this new project, or, this thing happening with the county, and what's the right time for, for us to record that as a city, per gap. And so we pointed out some of those items that, we worked with your team to get corrected in the way that they needed to be as of 6:30.
So that last sentence you just said, kind of, from my interpretation, implies that you worked with the staff to come up with a process to deal with these new transactions, or are you saying that that still needs to happen?
That is a great point of clarity. We worked with your team to propose the correct entries to make sure the balances were properly stated. We would not have worked with the city to put a process in place going forward.
Okay.
So that is something that,
Still needs to happen.
Is it easy to put a process going forward? Because, some of these things like ARPA were just, kind of new and one-time hits. So, if
Yeah.
something new comes along, can we define a process?
you probably could. I think it's just, I think it's easy to miss when people are running 1,000,000 miles per hour, maybe a checklist, or, each council meeting, maybe there's a checklist of action items, and then that's a good opportunity to pause and reflect on, okay, what's the accounting report implication of this action item? Maybe that's one way of doing it. There's probably others.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
And then the last one, it's sort of related to, I'd say, all the things that we've been talking about, similar to bank recs, just making sure that as, there are differences between the detailed ledgers. So for example, when you think about money that is owed to the city from your water customers, right? So there's a ledger by user of the system, how much they owe at any point in time, right? And the total of that ledger should, at any point in time, match what's in your financial statement, so like that total receivable. And so to the extent that those don't match, there really should be a reconciliation identifying the differences. And so we did identify a couple instances where there were differences. They weren't material, and we kind of showed you the amounts in most instances, but that would be like an added step to say, okay, we have some differences. Why is that? And let's kind of account for them and make sure everything's fully reconciled. I'm going to pause there because that is
That's
the end of section
1,
one.
yeah. I had all my questions answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
No?
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to section 2. So there is not as much in this letter. A lot of this is, I'll call it like boilerplate language. You've seen it before. It's kind of our standards prescribe what this needs to say. So on the first page of section 1, probably the only item worth pointing out is all the way at the bottom there, where we're required to note the most sensitive or significant estimates included in your financial statements, and those really haven't changed in recent years. So the net pension liability, the other post-employment benefits liability, and now the new lease receivable with those accounting standards that were implemented last year. On the next page, because this is, again, technically a separate communication, this letter does also have to address the corrected misstatements. And so those are described there, but we've already covered them in section 1. I don't think we'll need to go through them again. But in that same corrected and uncorrected misstatement section, the second paragraph talks about uncorrected misstatements. So it's, errors we identified, but when we discussed with management, we sort of mutually agreed that they were okay not to post, and you could pass on them and clean them up in the current year, and that they wouldn't mislead or materially misstate your financial statements. But again, we are required to make the governing body aware that we did concur with passing on those items.
Which section was that?
That is the second page of section 2. It's kind of right in the middle there, corrected and uncorrected misstatements.
Oh, okay.
In the second paragraph.
Got it, yeah.
Okay. And then I think there's one more. Yeah, so that's really it. I mean, if you read the rest of section 2, it just says none, no exceptions, no other issues. So that's good. Section 3, I will cover just a couple of items on the first and part of the second page. So you can see we've kind of broken this into, here's an update on some prior year matters, and then here's some additional current year considerations. And so we were so pleased to be able to have a different communication to this group regarding water loss. So job well done, finally figuring that issue out. It's going to be a huge savings for the city going forward, and that 5.5% water loss is about what we'd expect. So that's really good. Our takeaway from that, or maybe for you all, would be make sure we're really monitoring that closely, monthly, and identifying if there's any more spikes, trying to get ahead of those right away. But job well done. Likewise, we commend the city for implementing an automated tracking system for compensated absences. We had been recommending that. And so that's really great to kind of move from a manual system that was more prone to error. So again, job well done. On the credit card documentation, we did note that the city did make some changes to its process and documentation procedures based on some of the feedback we provided last year. We think it's a step closer, but we think there's still an opportunity to keep improving that. Okay, so we want to make sure that every expense item has a documented business purpose. In the moment, it may not seem like a big deal, it might seem obvious, but you fast forward several months and you put it in front of an objective person and it's not always clear, right? So documented business purpose, the clear nature of the expense, the date, so just keep building on what you've started and kind of work on getting that to where it needs to be. We did, it just happened to be the case, I think, I'm not sure, but we do a lot of testing by sampling, right? And so it's really not possible for us to test every we'd be here camped out all year, right? If we were testing every single transaction of the city, and so we do sampling. And so in this case, most all of the samples that we picked for certain individuals, for certain months, did include travel and conferences. The challenge for us with that is that we couldn't really validate it back to policies, approvals, and so we're always looking for, is this allowable spending? Who authorized it? And with that, because there wasn't really a policy or a documented trail of authority or who makes these decisions, we really couldn't conclude. And so in that case, we bring it to you all as a governing body to say, here's an observation, and it was an approved expense by way of going kind of through council. You look at the expenses, and so maybe that's perfectly fine. But we thought it was an opportunity to maybe shore up a policy or some documentation just so it was more clear. And so that's really the recommendation.
So again, do you like best practices from other cities that Plant Moran has worked with that seem to work well? I know that you can have different sized cities with different resources, and so there's variance there, but.
Yeah, it certainly varies. Some folks do have formal policies around this stuff, but not every community. I would say one thing that's usually pretty consistent is sort of the like a documented authority. So maybe a clearer documentation of the business case, approval, allowable spending for such things, sort of like you would with anything else, right? And again, happy to talk more. It does run the gambit in terms of what we see, but I think there's a lot of different ways to get there.
Okay.
Online banking policy, this is really just, I'll call it a standard best practice, as we all continue to move, whether it's personal or in our respective areas of business or for the city, right? More and more online banking. It is a best practice recommendation that organizations sort of formalize their, I'll call it sort of rules and responsibilities, right? Who should have access, how do we navigate that? How do we manage our online accounts? Kind of all the security over online banking, sort of all those things. It's sort of nice to, I think, to spend time thinking through that and then sort of archiving how you want to manage the increasing risk, candidly, associated with online banking.
Oh, I have a question on that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and it's kind of related to segregation of duties. So in online banking, you know, my personal banking account, I have the login.
Yeah.
Right, nobody else gets access to it. Obviously, in the city, we need to have at least 2 people
Right.
that have access to it, right?
Yeah.
So what is does that just follow the best practice along other segregation of duties?
It's a
How
little
do
bit-
we manage our
It's a little
online
bit
banking
different,
access?
I would say. Were you gonna jump in, Pam? I didn't know if
I was just going to say, it's a little bit different, that we do have certain people on there. One is usually the city administrator has access to the banking. I have access to banking. And then you have to have your accounts payable because we do positive pay, so she has to send all the checks to the bank for positive pay. Plus, since we are doing remote deposits with the checks and that, she has to have access to that, so that's another. But we do segregate what they can do and what they cannot do. Also with the banking, and it just needs to be put in writing actually, because also with the banking, we have fobs that we have to, like if I were to do a transfer to the county for taxes, for their money, then I would have to find the manager or somebody else with the fob, and they would have to release my funds.
So 2 people would know
So
that that
2 people
transaction-
have to release the funds. The only thing we don't have is where, if I had to transfer money from tax account to general account because we had to pay bills or something, that, there isn't anything on that, but there should probably be some kind of a policy on that part of it. So that would probably be a good thing that would be put into the policy.
Thanks, Pam.
I would imagine most banks probably have a good starting point. You know, they might say, they'll make you think about some other things, you know. Do you want to have a transfer limit per day or, you know, kind of per transaction, those other kind of things. But I'd start with the banks themselves versus starting from scratch.
Got it.
So a couple of other items that did come up this year that we just wanted to make note of. We do testing of the underlying personnel data that drives your actuarial valuations. It's called, you know, census testing. And so, because that really drives our ability to rely on those estimates. Those are significant estimates, as we talked about in your financial statements. And so, what we observed this year is that when we picked some of the members in the plan for testing, that we really couldn't validate some of their information in the actuary report back to source records because, you know, things had gone from being paper files to being moved online, and not everything sort of got converted into the online system. And so it's practically speaking, I think most people can understand that over time, you know, you kind of lose records, but we do still have a responsibility to go back and try to validate those. So the recommendation is just, you know, as we transition more and more to electronic storing, electronic data, you know, trying to make sure we're capturing things that were previously maintained in a different form, particularly in hard
So
copy
shouldn't that-
files.
Shouldn't that be a really quick fix? I mean, because it seems like we don't have a lot of retirees, so the underlying data to provide into the actuarial should be very simple to fix, I would think.
Do you
Well,
want to?
This year, the one we had trouble with is a retiree that, I'm not even sure when they retired, their spouse is getting the benefits now. And we couldn't even locate the retiree's personnel file.
Got
It
it.
was in the police
Got it.
department. But with theirs being different, treasurers different, I mean, when I first started here, there were no personnel files for people. Everything that MERS went into a MERS file. Everything that was, let's say, your 457 went into a 457. There was never a name and all their paperwork in a file. I have changed that since I have been here. So that was one prior to me being here, but we could not find that file. And so we ended up having to call MERS, which MERS used to be with the state of Michigan, and now that they've transferred over to MERS, and they're not with the state of Michigan anymore, that was another issue, because we had to go to the state of Michigan and try to get that information. So that's where those things, and I when we talked about it, I understood what they said. I tried to see what we can do about that, and, you know, look at the MERS things and see if we can get all those, you know, documents together and get the personnel files and have them in a certain spot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to be clear, there is a process in place. It doesn't happen very often, right, but you periodically will have these, like, people that are tough to track down because of a circumstance like that. So now we have a process in place to put together and a checklist, like here's the documentation that we need in order to make sure that we have a reconciliation record, a personnel file that we can reconcile the payments against, right? Yeah, okay, great.
On the budget monitoring, so if you had an opportunity to take a spin through the financial statements, you did see that there were some overruns in some of the funds beyond what was budgeted. And part of that, Ashley had talked about relative to the general fund results and the drop there in fund balance. So really, if you think about the way the Public Act 2 is written in the state of Michigan, the governing body really should be authorizing all spending, right? That's a primary part of your responsibility, and you do that through the budget process. And so to the extent that you expect that you're going to have significant overruns, we really do encourage you to make a budget amendment so that that's documented and archived that you've approved. You provide authorization for those additional expenditures. And so that's the part that was missing that we want to bring to your attention, and going forward, we encourage you to kind of put those budget amendments in place. Okay. This is the next item at the top. It's very similar to what we talked about on the first section, so we probably don't need to revisit the interfund balances and transactions. I don't think that there's any additional takeaways that we haven't already discussed. And then the legislative and informational items, those are really just, we're going to leave with you for your reference. I don't think there's anything that we need to cover in this meeting this evening. But if those are topics that are of interest, you can kind of read them at your own leisure.
So the nature of those things is around legislative changes or
Yeah, legislative
updates?
changes, some reporting changes, some accounting changes, really things that I'll say your team will be navigating, your financial team will be navigating, as we go forward.
So it's good to have awareness
Yeah,
of
it's just
them.
good to have awareness, I'd
Okay.
say. No action items needed by the governing body.
Understood.
Any questions? Any further questions, I should say?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to page 81 in the packet, which is page 3 in the financials, the big document. So, and I guess before I get into my question, it just lends a opportunity, since you guys are here, and Ms. Miller used her final speech to throw yet another false and unsubstantiated conspiracy theory against me in particular. First, can you please verify that none of the council people had received the audit prior to it being delivered just recently?
I can confirm that we provided these reports on Thursday of last week.
Thank you. And so my question has, that was related to the general fund. And so my question has to do with the general fund. Obviously, we took $658,000 out of the general fund. And so I guess going back, so we had our budget, and I guess this is for the auditors and Pam. Going back in January, we did our budget amendments. And at that point, our revenue was up $170,000 and our expenses were up $230,000, so the overall effect of that was about a $60,000 hit to the general fund. Now, I understand that the expenses aren't linear from month to month, and that they vary dramatically, but it gave us a good sense that, somewhat on track. And then we did our budget amendments in June when we approved our budget, and at that point, our general fund was $250,000 less in I'm sorry, not our general fund. Our general fund revenue was $250,000 less than what we had expected, and the expenses were up $182,000. So at that point, we're looking at about, if you add the two of those together, it's a $432,000 hit. And as somebody reviewing that, knowing that $220,000 of that expense was for sidewalks, which will be reimbursed in this next coming year. So effectively, it's around a $200,000 hit. So my thinking at that point was, all right, that's a large hit, but it's around what we had budgeted, and it still gives us time to moving forward to look at our expenses and consider things like a Headley override and so forth, which we've kind of casually been talking about over the years. And then when we got the audit, it jumped up to $658,000. Which was kind of a gut punch.
Sure.
So I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, is, you know, it was a little bit of a surprise in terms of, you know, the jump from what we saw in June to what we're seeing now. And then, you know, so I guess the question is how that came as such a surprise, as well as, you know, what can we do moving forward to make sure that we're better apprised of the general fund on a month-to-month basis? And then, I guess, second, the question is what was the difference between what we were looking at in June at about 430,000 to 658,000? So you're talking an additional $250,000. So what comprised that?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. For one, I want to maybe level set a little bit. On page 51 of the financial statements is your budget to actual for the general fund. And we're not showing up any budget amendments for the year. So if there were budget amendments that were done in January, then we probably,
June and January, they were both posted too.
I'm not sure what happened. They were, so that's,
Yeah, 'cause I saw that in the audit where you
So,
mentioned
yep.
that so it was confusing because
Okay.
it said there were no budget amendments, but we did budget amendments.
So both of the TBs we have, you know, don't reflect those, so we need to get those, which is good because this is draft, it's not final.
Okay.
So we should
Let's look at
update to
that.
show the budget amendments, so that's one thing I wanted to make sure we all can address. I'm gonna have to defer to Pam because we don't receive a copy of the preliminary numbers in June. Pam is still posting a lot of entries, and then we come out in August, and that's the first iteration of numbers that we see. And then there's still a lot of entries that get posted in the kind of the months after that through the audit process. So Pam would probably have the best gauge on kind of what significant items changed.
There were things done like the DPW parking lot that I was not aware of. That was done out of the bond proceeds, and then the general fund had to pay the bond proceeds back. So there were things done like that, and then there was also in the DDA, there was some work done, and the DDA owed the general fund money for the work that was done. So, or owed the major local. So when we were doing our bond proceeds and making sure that we spent all of the bond proceed money in that, we also had to go and make adjustments for all these other little projects that were done that were supposed to be paid from other places. So, I mean, I don't know how else to explain that. It's kind of, but that's what happened. And so when you don't catch that or you're not told about it during the year, then that's where communication is very important when you're doing books and things like that. But when you're not told about it, then you find out it's kind of a surprise at the end, and that's what happened. And so when we were balancing our bond proceeds, that's when we found out that there were projects done, and so money just had to be shifted, and that's where a lot of the money for the due froms had to be shifted and things like that too. So that's part of it.
So I guess going back to some of the recommendations that you had
Correct.
in the audit, if a lot of these things were being reconciled on a more
Correct.
frequent basis, it wouldn't have come as such a big surprise.
So that's one of the questions was sort of what's the risk of not doing some of these things, right? Part of it is kind of having inaccurate reporting throughout the year until those things get reconciled.
Right, because to me, as a council person, that's you know, the most important number, because,
Sure.
you know, had we known that, you know, obviously 6 months ago, we could have started to take some corrective actions in terms of starting to cut some expenses and things like that, but we don't know that till, you know, 2 days ago.
Sure.
And so it's like I said, it was like a gut punch seeing that.
I understand.
Good.
Well, I guess, just let me say, so is there a way that we can, going forward, like as part of our monthly council packet, is there a way that we can get, you know, and again, I know the expenses aren't linear and there's a lot of transactions, you know, reconciliation that has to take place, which you just described, but is there a way that we could get, you know, maybe as part of our packet, you know, an estimated, you know, so it's January, can we get an estimated, you know, this is what the general fund, we're estimating it to be at the end of the fiscal year, and in February, get that updated, in March, get that updated, or would that be something that would be just too hard to do?
Oh, I'd have to look at that, but that's gonna be the next treasure.
Right. Well, but you can answer whether or not it's something that's
Yeah,
possible.
It's something that's probably possible.
Yeah, because it would be nice to have a better pulse on the general fund throughout the year.
It's just another report that they would have to provide the council.
Right, okay.
It also, it's, the ability to rely on it is going to be driven by the accuracy of the data too, right? So you could still be in a similar situation even if you are getting those reports, if there are things that come up later or that get reconciled later or identified later, you could be in a similar situation.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
So now we're gonna do the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the city council and will be approved by one motion. There will be a separate discussion. If a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after the consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. So who would like to make the motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. There is no discussion. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Barksdale,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
You can change this one.
This is the state.
Right, that's it.
Okay, next we'll open the public hearing for the 2023 CDBG funds application.
So Mayor and Council, every community that participates in the Community Development Block Grant Program is required to hold a public hearing to inform residents of what the money will be spent for. And this year, our estimated allocation is approximately $7,000. The project amount of $3,500 to go to senior services, and the remaining $3,500 to transportation services. Both are to expand and support our senior programs.
Thank you. The hearing is open. Is there anyone that wants to be heard about the CDBG funds application? If you do, please come to the microphone and state your name. Then we'll close the,
We got one.
oh,
I don't know, it's appropriate for me to ask for more clarification on what does that mean? Sorry, my name is Carol Green. And when you say senior projects, what does that mean and who is responsible for that happening?
In the past, the Parks and Rec Department or some of the kind of things that have come from DDA, and they've done, there was a Valentine's Day dance, there was a trip to Meadowbrook. There have been a number of transportation things. That's why we have the bus. We use that, we previously used that money for the bus. There have been a number of trips and dances and all kinds of things for seniors to do in the community that's used community development money.
Thank you.
is there anyone else that wants to be heard? Hearing none, then I will close the public hearing. For Scott?
That's something next is the,
So we need a motion to approve the,
Sorry?
we need a motion to approve the application.
I'm going over to the right side
that's
first.
the first action request.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want,
So I'll make a motion to approve the CDBG block grant.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Councilmember Barksdale,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. And next, we will discuss the 11-mile resurfacing. Up for consideration and approval.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So before you today, we have a proposal for the 11-mile resurfacing. As we've previously discussed and as we all learned at the open house last Wednesday, the Road Commission for Oakland County will be repaving Southfield Road from 11 mile to 12 mile. They will also be reconstructing the deteriorated concrete at the intersection of 11 Mile and Southfield Road. As part of this, as part of that reconstruction, they will be closing the east and westbound ramps to 696. And we have myself, Chief McKee, Scott Ringler, we have met with the Road Commission and we have asked them if there is an opportunity for us to piggyback the resurfacing of 11 Mile, which is the city's responsibility, as part of their overall project scope. This will allow us to take advantage of their existing lane closures, as well as they have agreed to design, prepare the bid specs, bid the project with their work, as well as provide inspection and contract administration at no cost to the city. So that is an extremely generous cost savings there. Just for reference, back in 2020 when we resurfaced the westbound portion of 11 Mile, traffic control alone, so just the road closure signs alone, was $55,000. So to be able to include this in the Road Commission's project would be wonderful. So in our conversations with the Road Commission, they did agree that this would be the opportune time to get that work completed. The estimated cost for this project is $230,000. That does include a 15% construction contingency. If council agrees to this, it will be included in the Southfield Road bid this winter, with the as-bid cost to be provided to council at that time. And just one thing to note, that the eastbound portion from Southfield to the eastbound 696 ramp, that'll be scheduled for resurfacing in 2025. This is work that is going to be happening on the westbound sections.
Can you explain what 15% construction contingency means?
It's generally potential cost overages, as we've seen in additional or in our previous infrastructure projects. Costs have gone up, right? So that will help us cover those expenses should they arise.
And what you're asking for us to do tonight is to authorize the city to investigate this, go out, work with Giffords Webster to go out to bid, get the numbers back. This is not a request for allocation of funds at this point.
No, not at this point. This is for us to move forward with the Road Commission. They will be submitting their permit work to MDOT, since this will, obviously this is part of, and this is going to touch the MDOT bridge. So this is to ensure our project's inclusion in their bid documents for that project.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So when you said it's gonna be touching MDOT,
Because, so the Southfield Road, the surface of Southfield Road is the Road Commission's, but the actual bridge deck, because it crosses 696, is MDOT's.
so, yes.
Yes.
My question is, so you're gonna be working with MDOT?
Yes.
All right,
So,
you should know where I'm going with
this
this.
is a federally funded project. Road Commission obtained 3.6 million of federal funds, and the Road Commission will be managing this project, but it does go through MDOT.
Okay.
So the Road Commission will be putting together the bids, the specifications. It'll be bid through MDOT. I think the grade inspection's next month, and bids will probably be due around February, maybe March. Anticipated start date is May or June. But this is really an opportune time for the city to piggyback and save significant money. you know, and Giffords Webster have very little involvement. It'll be a little bit of oversight on behalf of Lathrup Village. The road commission will handle all the construction. But, you know, realize when these ramps are closed, there's 15,000 vehicles going westbound and 12,000 going eastbound that won't be there. It's gonna make this project really simple.
My question is, because you're gonna be dealing with MDOT already, is that we've had an ongoing issue about the missing pieces, on the bridge, the
So,
railing.
you're not gonna wanna hear this. 2025 is scheduled for 696 reconstruction. They will be repairing the bridge deck of Southfield Road. They'll be sealing it, they'll be doing some full depth repairs, they'll be doing some railing work. Unfortunately, I didn't see much sidewalk work. That sidewalk along the edge really needs some work, so Susie and I will be touching base during they have a big meeting next month on that project.
Will we be informed about that meeting?
You can, I don't know if you wanna sit through a full day of,
Well,
yeah.
I have my gripes with MDOT, so,
I can forward you a meeting.
okay. But you only mentioned Southfield Road. What about the other gates that are missing along like,
The crossovers?
yeah, the crossovers?
Yeah, that'll happen in 2025.
Okay.
With the
Along with
696 project.
696, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, someone wants to make the motion?
I would like to make a motion to authorize city staff to work with the road commission for Oakland County to prepare specifications for the resurfacing of westbound and eastbound 11 Mile Road from Southfield Road to the west on-ramp for westbound 11 Mile Road and the off-ramp for eastbound 11 Mile Road, bid the project with the Southfield Road work, and to fund paving of this project with the local and major road funds. Upon receipt of bids, a recommendation will be prepared and submitted to City Council for consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, just a couple things, especially for the newer council people and some of the residents, especially after talking about the audit just now in the general fund. Just want to make sure there's not any confusion. So the city gets what's called Act 51 monies every year, which is usually somewhere in the neighborhood of about $550,000. And that money is split up 75-25 by statute. 75% goes to the major road fund, of which this is obviously one of our major roads, and 25% of it goes to the local road fund. Traditionally, what we've done over the last decade is you have the ability to take 25% of your total funds and take it an additional 25% out of the major and move it to the local. So what we've historically done is we've moved money from the major portion into the local fund. So essentially makes it a 50-50 split, and we can put more money towards our local roads. When we passed the millage in 2020 and started the 3-year project, one of the things that council did specifically, because of knowing that 11 Mile is going to be an issue in the future, is we stopped doing that transfer because our local roads were being taken care of via the millage. So the idea there was to grow the major road fund, so that when 11 Mile work starts, we'll have the money to do that. And so the major road fund right now is up to $1.2 million. That's a completely separate fund from the general fund. So we've been planning for this. We didn't know that this was gonna be coming. Now it is a perfect opportunity to do that short stretch, and we'll have, money, again, built up for the rest of it when we eventually get to it. But the money for this has already been saved, so to speak, so this isn't, an unexpected expense. So just for the new council people, just to understand that, I think is important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Councilmember Barksdale,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes,
Councilmember Hammond,
Yes.
motion carried.
thank you. Next, we'll have the consideration for approval of the audit. Thank you all.
I don't have any, I didn't put anything in the packet because I wasn't here, but since the audit was I'm sorry, I wasn't here to put something in the packets. I had to have some of the department staff do it. But you have heard the audit by the auditors. They did their presentation, and the audit just has to be approved and filed. Unless you have any questions, more questions
One
on what they
question I
have.
have is that they are going to be amending the draft because of the budget amendments that they were not aware of. So is there a way of doing a contingent motion, or do we have to wait until the December meeting to approve it?
I mean, you could do a contingent motion that proves it's subject to those amendments, but you may want to review those before you do that, so.
Yeah.
Can we table it then?
Yeah, and it's not, you don't even have to take action on it tonight. You could leave it tabled or.
I'll motion to table the audit report approval.
Second.
It's
Okay.
been moved and seconded. I don't think there's really any discussion with that, so, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor?
Yes.
Councilmember Barksdale?
Yes.
Mayor Garrett?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. So now we have to go into. We need to, discuss the, city administrator negotiations, and it was requested by the candidate to, keep it confidential. So we need a.
That is correct, yeah. There's a provision of the Open Meetings Act that provides for a review of an employment application or materials in conjunction and consideration of those. That allows for that to be done in a closed session if the individual making or the subject of that application has requested such. I did receive a correspondence from Mr. Green today requesting that be done in confidence. So we would need a motion with a roll call vote citing the specific statute, which I did provide to the Mayor Pro Tem. And then we can reconvene in a closed session.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to move into closed session to review and consider the contents of an application for employment under section 15.268, section 1, paragraph F.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. There doesn't have to be a discussion, right?
No discussion, just a vote, roll call
Roll
vote.
call, please.
Councilmember Barksdale?
Yes.
Mayor Garrett?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the closed session, come out of the closed session into a new session, into the existing session.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Garrett?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor?
Yes.
Councilmember Barksdale?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Oh, for sure. I will make a motion to direct the city attorney to continue negotiations with the candidate for city administrator based on the discussion in the closed session.
Second.
That was quick too. It's been moved in second. Is there any further discussion? I don't think there needs to be. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor?
Yes.
Councilmember Barksdale?
Yes.
Mayor Garrett?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to the election of the mayor. The election will be of mayor by ballot.
Mayor and council, I will forward each of you a ballot for ballot by mayor. Please take one and pass the rest down. Mayor by ballot. I'm sorry, I said that wrong.
Just keep passing.
Just keep passing.
I don't need one?
No, there was only 4.
Everybody got one? you have made your selection, please pass them back down this way. So that is 4 votes for Kelly Garrett and 1 vote for Bruce Cantor. Congratulations, Mayor Garrett, you have been elected mayor.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And we will do the same for Mayor Pro Tem. So I have 1 vote for Councilmember Jennings and 4 votes for Bruce Cantor. Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem Cantor, you have been. So I do need to give you your oath of office. Garrett, if you can run me, please. I, Michael Garrett, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, Michael Garrett, do solemnly, and say it again, I'm sorry, my brain just went.
do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village,
and I will discharge my duties as mayor
and I will discharge my duties as mayor
for the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
for the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Mayor Pro Tem Cantor, please join me. Please raise your right hand. I, Bruce Cantor,
I, Bruce Cantor,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup
the
Village,
Charter and ordinances of the City of Lathrup Village,
and I will discharge my duties
and I will discharge my duties
as Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
as Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Lathrup Village, Michigan,
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Now, did we have a discussion item, which is the treasurer's position?
I don't know why that was put up in there, but just to let you know that I, before I went out on medical, I did do interviews with 4 candidates, and the candidate that best I thought, and plus I had somebody from Plant Moran on the team with, or audit with me, or not one of our auditors, but somebody from Plant Moran do interviews with me in that. And we both decided the candidate did turn down the position after a period of time. She was no longer interested in coming to Lathrup Village. So at this time, I would like to talk to council at the next study session about that, because there's some options of trying to get a treasurer in here. And at this point, I don't want to just put somebody in the position. I think I should probably leave that up to the next city administrator to do that, so.
So, question I ask you about is whether or not, and this is something I talked to Pam about, is about to contract you.
I would have to be off for a period of 60 days prior, because with my MERS and my retirement and that, because they are having hard time finding financial people and things like that, they would have, you cannot have a contract going out of the city.
Right.
So like I could not have a contract saying, oh, I'm gonna come back July 1st or January 1st. I couldn't do that. I would have to have a period of time away before you guys
technically
would
until
even
March.
talk about it. Before you guys could even talk about it. So, I have told all the staff downstairs that I'm gonna be more than happy to answer questions when I go, to kind of help move things along, kind of help, with things and that, but I would not be able to come back for a period of time.
And then the option is for Plant Moran to step in to do contractual work?
Plant Moran could come in, as they have helped in the a couple past audits in that, when I was doing manager, deputy treasurer, and my position, all 3 of them at the same time. They have stepped in. They have a group called PM Gap, which is the gap between the city and the auditors. And they come in, they can do bank recs, they can do things to keep the city moving and rolling forward, so that you guys don't get behind in things. They probably would not be able to do like your treasurer's settlement for taxes, things like that, but they can do these other things to keep the books rolling. They would do that, and then, but the only problem is with that, if they did that, they would have to step down as our auditors for the year, because they cannot do the work and audit themselves. So then you would have to go out for, you would probably have to go out for an audit, which we do have, because we've done that before, so an RFP for auditors, we do have that. The other thing would be to bring in a different audit firm to do that in between gap. And then still have Plant Moran do the audit.
Okay.
So there's different things, and I talked to the auditors while I was on medical, I've talked to different things, I've talked to different township cities, people I know, different treasurers I know, and things that they have done when they've had these kind of things going on.
I don't suppose there's an option, C, of convincing you to delay your retirement a couple months?
I probably would have at one time, but there's just so much going on, and some of the things I see out there and read, and I have a feeling some of the residents don't want me here, or don't like what I do, so it's been very heartbreaking to me.
A tiny, loud percentage.
Well, it's been heartbreaking though, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be truthful about it.
I mean, we've all been there, trust me. I mean, you're not alone in that,
but, I mean, when people put things out there, they're putting things out there, they don't know how much it is hurting people, and I was supposed to be on medical, recuperating, and things like that. They don't know how much you're really hurting people when you're saying things, when you don't really know exactly what's going on, like the audit. There was so much put out about the audit. You came here today, you heard the audit, you heard things that were going on with the audit. I have always told everybody, I have an open door policy. If you want to talk to me about any of the finances, anything about the city, come talk to me. This is my 4th time doing the city manager job and the treasurer job. Those are 2 full-time jobs. The day before, the Friday before, I went off for surgery. I was here till 3:30 in the morning trying to get things done for the city so that I wasn't leaving the staff busy, or I wasn't leaving them with a mess. So, and then during that time too, I was still working on audit, because when they would call the city or email somebody at the city, if they didn't know how to do something for the audit, I would get the email, I would tell them where to go, find it, they would put that out there. I mean, I want Lathrup Village, I have been here 23 years, and Lathrup Village has been one of the better cities I've worked in. I worked in another city before this too. The residents have always been great. It has been stressful the last 2 years, I will be honest with that. It has been very stressful because people don't come in and talk to me and ask me questions. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions anybody has. So these are reasons why I kind of am retiring, because I mean, I've had other offers at other places I can go to, and you know, I don't know what it's going to be like there. I don't know if they're going to, you know, be the same or whatever. I'm not saying, you know, but you, Lathrup residents have been great, and you guys, I hope that someday you pull together as a team in Lathrup Village and stop the back and forth and negative things, because you guys are wonderful people, and you got along for so long up until the last couple of years, and I see it. And it's been really hard, and I see with a lot of people, it's hard to come to work, it's hard to, you know, express ourselves. I'm sorry, I'm not a soapbox, and I'm just telling you that this is how it's been, and I'm just gonna let you know that that's how I've been feeling for a while. And I knew the audit wasn't gonna be the perfect audit, but I had a lot of things going on this year. Plus, I had a administrator that worked a year. That person left. That left me back into the city administrator position. It left me back doing the finance work again. You know, you guys don't realize how much it has been when you're doing a job. And before one of our managers even got on, I had to do, before Sue got on, actually, I had to do the part of the city administrator, because Scott and Susie helped me, because I said I could not do it myself. I had to do my treasurer job, which is a big job, and I had to do the deputy treasurer job, because I didn't have a deputy treasurer. So when you look at these audits, and it all says that I'm doing a lot of the stuff, I have to do it, because I have nobody else that has that finance or accounting experience that can do that kind of stuff. I try to train them to learn that stuff. So there's a lot of training, but when you have turnover in your staff because of things that are out there, it hurts your staff, it hurts your city. So, I'm sorry, but that's what I had to say, and so.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam. We appreciate you.
So maybe?
Well, let's see if things change within a month, and then I'll let you know. Because they still haven't okayed my retirement quite yet, but they said 6 weeks and it should be coming up.
Look at this face, how
So
can
you
you say no to this face?
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I think you'll see a drastic change.
Well, I hope so.
Do you want to talk more because, or are you finished?
But
'Cause that
that's-
just kind of goes right into your city administrator
Yeah,
report,
that
so I
kinda
wasn't
goes into
sure.
with the treasurer and things like that, and with me trying to pick somebody right now, after, you know, things that I had seen and said and that, and I'm like, okay, if I put a treasurer in, even if I get it okay by Plant Moran or anybody to say this is a good person, I'm afraid that if that person doesn't work, it's gonna be back on me saying, oh, Pam picked that person, Pam did, and I just don't want that, so that's why I kind of backed off the treasurer position right now until I get to talk to the city administrator and see what he wants. Because I don't even really know what his qualifications are, because I've never met the guy, so, but I hope it's great, and
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, it's feasible that you could work with Plant Moran to find qualified treasurer candidates and then kind of hold off on doing anything with them until the city manager is in place and let them carry the ball
well,
forward.
and that's what happened with the one candidate. That one was a recommendation from the auditing firm. That person did not come from my team at all. My team did not know anything about them. Somebody from the PM Gap team knew them, And I knew a gentleman that said, you know, this person called me because all of us treasurers call around, all of us treasurers hit up and he said that a treasurer from another city called him and said, hey, if you hear anything, I'm looking for a job. And so when we brought that person in, that person is a finance person. And I thought that would be great for the city to have that finance person in here. And when I offered her the position, it took her about 2 weeks, and she came back and said, I'm not interested.
Did we get a reason?
I did not get a reason from her. I probably could call her and ask her. But I thought she would have fit really well with the staff we have, and I thought she would have been a really good candidate here. The other ones that we have, the other three we have, at the point right now, I'm kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I should, shouldn't, so I want to talk to the manager, so.
Yeah. People may ask if there's a qualified candidate within the city staff or maybe even within residents in the village.
They were more than welcome to apply. I mean, anybody can apply, and if they go back out, it was on Indeed, it was on MML, Michigan Municipal League, because that's where a lot of candidates are. They had it on Indeed. So we find that a lot of people have accounting experience, but they don't have governmental accounting, and they're two different things. So.
Is the posting still out there?
No, that one, it went down, it was down, but if the new manager wants to go back out for postings, then we would use the same stuff we used before. I would send it out for him and get it out there so that, and maybe in January, he can interview.
Okay.
And if he wanted me to sit in on the interviews, I would be more than happy to do that.
Okay. Thanks, Pam.
So that was your city administrator report also? I just don't know.
Well, it said, mine's items discussion, yes, it says treasure, so, yep, it was kind of.
No, I mean, right, next, the next
item.
one is
I'm
city,
sorry.
the next one was city administrator report, so I'm assuming that we just kind of put
Yeah,
them all
we rolled
together.
it all into one.
Okay. City attorney, do you have any?
Believe it or not, I actually do tonight. So, I do have a litigation update for you guys, which is good news, so, and I'll expand a little bit, but try to be quick as well, because it's pretty late. So, for the benefit of the new council members, approximately 2 years ago, January of 2021, the city was sued by a commercial property owner in the city. They own 3 commercial buildings: Lathfield Investments, Lathfield Holdings, Lathfield Partners, commonly JMC Corporation, as we refer to them. They filed a 9-count complaint against the city's DDA, McKenna and Associates, and our former building official, Jim Wright. That litigation has been pending for almost 2 years, and Thursday the 9th, the federal court finally issued an opinion granting our motion for summary disposition. That means that we won. They dismissed all 9 counts against the city and the city DDA. There are 2 remaining counts against McKenna and Jim Wright that the court did not dismiss, so the case will continue to proceed until those 2 remaining claims are completely adjudicated. But for all intents and purposes, the city is out of it. Now, they have committed, or at least verbally have indicated, that their desire to appeal this decision, but they're not going to be able to do that until the entire case is concluded. So we've got probably another year at least until there's some finality to this. But the good news on that is that the court pretty much adopted all of the city's arguments, which is great. They supported our ordinances that were challenged. One of the counts was challenging the validity of our ordinance with respect to building codes, mechanical codes. The court dismissed their argument and said that no, our ordinances are fine, and that they also validated our business license requirement and our ordinance for that. There was some question as to whether or not that would be applicable in the court. Again, almost adopting our arguments verbatim. So that was good. And basically what that means at this point is that the city can proceed with enforcement action against those commercial properties. While we haven't been completely ignoring everything, we've kind of backed off in terms of the site plan compliance. That's kind of what triggered this whole thing, is they had gotten a site plan approval and they were required to make some improvements to one of the properties as a result of it. And instead of making those improvements, they filed this lawsuit. So we're finally going to be able to get back on track with that. And that's just kind of a general overview. The opinion is 53 pages long. If anybody wants it, I'll send it to you. It is a good read. It kind of outlines the whole process. But but yeah, I can provide that. I'll provide it to all the council, so.
Yeah, and so if they appeal, does that then prevent us from moving forward with enforcement action, or
No,
we can do
so,
that
so
until?
there was never what's called a stay in the case. There was never a stay put in place that prevented us from doing it. But again, because of the litigation, nothing was getting done. So we'd been sending them notices, and it was like pulling teeth to get them to pick up trash or whatever the violation was. But this pretty much clears the way, and in fact, some effort on their part. My understanding is that they came in and dropped off a list of all their tenants and
Paid all their
requested their business license, which is something that they had been fighting quite vigorously throughout this. So hopefully some good faith on their part, and that we'll see some improvement in those properties soon.
Any other questions? Scott, did you ever bring up the other one? The MML one, the employee?
I think we talked about that when
Okay, I didn't know if we did, okay.
the litigation with former Officer Gorby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was canceled.
Yeah, that one was also dismissed, but that was 3 months ago, 4 months. We talked about that this summer, I feel like.
I wasn't sure, I don't remember, so.
But if we didn't, that case was dismissed as well.
Thank you. Is there any reports from the boards, commissions, and committees? Saying that
Just that there's a planning commission meeting tomorrow. I think we're discussing, I haven't had a chance to look at the packet yet, but I think we're discussing the remodeling of the existing Panera Plaza. Is that right, Jason? Do you know?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So, about tomorrow.
And Jason had to have resigned.
I resigned.
His planning
Right.
commission seat before taking this position. So in January, there'll be just as typical when there's appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions, there will be a council seat available.
Commission seat.
Commission, yeah, well, a seat for a council member on the planning commission.
Yes.
But there's also, that's a revolving, I mean, it hasn't revolved much for lack of interest, but we do generally open it up to all, so you and Bruce can arm wrestle. It goes back to the planning.
I think it's gonna be
My
a
arm
mud
is
wrestling.
really weak.
No, we're going to mud wrestling. That's it.
Go ahead.
So, I think that, well, we'll have to, our next meeting is
December 4th.
and that's just a study session, so I don't know if we really need to have a special meeting before that for anything.
Typically, the first December study session, and
Yeah.
again, this is just historically, typically that's more of like a council orientation and training
Right.
session.
Right.
You guys hit the ground running tonight. You did a lot of things in your first meeting that some councils don't do in their first year, but, so that's totally up to you guys. If you wanna do that, I think it's a good thing, just as a refresher for everybody. Kind of hit on Open Meetings Act, FOIA things. Those are critical ordinances for this body to be familiar with. So my recommendation would be to at least schedule a portion of that meeting, if not all of that meeting, for that purpose.
Okay, that's fine. Do we have-
Excuse me, Mayor,
Yeah.
I have been in contact with Coco Seaward. I sent her an email, so I'm waiting to hear if she's available on the 4th.
For
as
the,
well.
okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then if she's not, I'm sure there is, someone else can do a high-level overview, which I have to look at it, because it seemed like there was somebody else that could do that. What are you gonna say?
So we have we're gonna have a couple of open seats on the planning commission, so those positions need to be posted for applicants.
So people haven't been submitting their applications.
That's already happened?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all, I just wanna make sure.
But at this, I was just thinking about the different committees, because there needs to be new committees added also. But I don't know how, but we'll talk about that, I guess, at that meeting in December, because I think that there should be some additional official kind of committees added, so.
Fair enough.
So is there any unfinished or new business? That's funny. Public comments, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and whatever you'd like to talk about, state your name, please.
Carol Green, and as a follow-up to the road commission open house, I would just like to address Chief McKee about what plans the city is making to enforce traffic through the neighborhoods. I live on Lake Boulevard, it's already an issue with, the construction on Southfield coming, I'm sure, for Bloomfield and Santa Barbara as well, and many other side streets. So I just implore you to be thinking about that and have a plan.
Yes, we'll definitely be vigilant out there. I mean, part of the road construction is the implementation of all the signage and that to try to direct people to detour them off of our side streets. Again, they are public roads, so as long as they're maintaining their speeds and abiding by the stop signs, I mean, we'll do our best to make sure that people are listening to those or doing what they're supposed to be doing. I do have a plan to reach out to the Sheriff's Department and also to City of Southfield to see if we can coordinate some type of effort to do some traffic enforcement.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was not going to make a comment, but I just feel compelled
Yeah, state your
because
name.
at the last meeting, it was made perfectly clear that we do not have to state our name. It's a public comment. Mayor, you referred to the attorney for verification. He said that you could say you were Mickey Mouse. So tonight, it's Minnie. Anyway, I'm just really disappointed that last meeting, it was an issue because former council member Karen Miller kept wanting people to state their name, and you made it perfectly clear it wasn't necessary, and yet that was what you said. Public comment, please state your name. So I'm really disappointed in that.
Thank you.
Hi, Lauren Barris. I am just wanting to talk about the light up. First of all, I wanted to congratulate the new council members.
Thank you.
That's
Thanks.
terrific. Greg Rabolo is doing the luminaries again in Lathrup Village. Is Light Up Lathrup Village. You can go to lightuplathrupvillage.com to find out more information, but it's a great opportunity to get all the luminaries and little the candles that go in it and everything, and he'll get that with a donation. And again, that's Lathrup Village, lightuplathrop.com to be specific. Sorry about that. And you can Venmo him, but you'll find out more when you go to lightuplathrop.com. Last year we had a good turnout, but it was new. This year we're hoping that there's more and that we really light up the whole city. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to say anything?
Ian Ferguson, first let me just say you will be missed here, Pam. It was a pleasure working with you for the 6 years when I was on council. And it looks like I was actually right my first year when I said you should be the city manager. No one believed me. I was the only one standing out there with the one vote. They didn't believe me, but here we are. You are doing the job again, and I appreciate you. Scott, you've always had her back. We really appreciate what you've done over the many years. Susie, you guys were kind of like the dynamic trio, and you really kept the city moving forward. I just ask that this council just kind of pivot and come together and really stretch across the aisle and talk to other council people, because we all have differences of opinions, and we need to kind of adhere to that. Last thing I want to cover is we do have an outstanding water bill that I really believe we should have a systematic update where we update the residents. This is the water bill that we discovered was a problem, and now we have to try to get that paid, right? So if you guys could kind of give us updates on that.
You mean the back billing?
Over the next couple, say
You're
again?
talking about the back
I think
billing?
he's talking about the back
Yeah,
building.
you're talking
The
about
back billing, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if we can get a systematic update on that and just let the residents know what you're working on and when it gets closed. Maybe it doesn't get closed when we get a city manager or before, but at least have some sort of update. And let's just pivot and try to come together and hear other differences, because there are going to be a lot of differences, and just kind of collaborate those differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Nope. So we'll go to mayor and council comments. One, I apologize. Made a mistake. Sorry. And I thought I said, did you want to, honestly, but maybe not. So I apologize. Also, I think that regarding the water billing, and Pam can speak more to it because she just told us something about it. But when it comes to cohesiveness of this council, I'm confident that it will be more cohesive. It will be discussions that will be had before making any decisions. I don't have a crystal ball whether or not it's going to be a 5-0 decision, because that's not how we all operate. I mean, I found that out just a minute ago. That's not how we operate. But it's the fact about being able to have those hard discussions and being able to make a decision based off of those discussions. Because honestly, going forward, we have a heavy lift, not only just financially, but we also have a community to heal through here. And that's every one of our responsibilities that's sitting up here. And so much so that, and Councilman Jason was the only person that really knows this, but I personally have been going back to the 4 agreements. And everyone knows what the 4 agreements are: to be impeccable with your word, to, I'll cheat because I did it right.
Yeah, write it down.
Be impeccable with your word, don't assume, don't take it personal, and then always do your best. And so this is something that I just decided, in the fact that we came through a lot in these 2 years, and personally for me and professionally for me. But what I did is that every single person on this council, you're getting that book so we can start making sure, I just forgot them at home, sorry. But that you're getting that. So this is how you have to have a foundation. And I feel as though for healing to start, that's where our foundations to start is just doing values, discussing values that you have personally, and then what we can bring together. So I'm really looking forward to the next 2 years with you all, and I really, again, appreciate everyone's vote, and I'm ready to let the past be the past and move forward. If you all are, I know I'm willing to, because I'm bruised. What else?
Yeah, well, I got a list of updates, which I'm just gonna wait, given the hour, we'll wait till the next meeting, but since it did come up with Ian, since this did come up with Ian, and it was one of the things that I did have on my list, can you just give an update on the backfilling program, which is the $130,000 that we approved a couple of years ago to backfill for 1.5-inch water customers who
Martha's been
underbilled.
working on it. She also, after every water read she does, she goes through, and anybody that has a really outstanding, or not an outstanding, I shouldn't say that, but anybody that has an unusual read, she is sending out letters. Last billing period, she sent out 45 letters to people. So she is on that. She's also been working on the new technology of getting the towers set up so that we do have our radio read, so that everything will be on the computers now. And we will be able to look at it in real time to what your water reads are. So every morning, she will be running a report once she gets the training and everything, because that's what the next step is for them. But once they get the report, they're gonna run a report every day, and if somebody has an outstanding or a huge water bill, because, I mean, that's why we went from quarterly to monthly, because after a quarter, 3 months, people were getting 25, 30 units of water they were using. And, I mean, and they're actual reads. They're not anything that is unusual, so, but we have been sending our guys out there. If you have an unusual read, we send them out there, we look at it. If you can't find the leak, we try to get them out there to do the leaks. So We have been working on that due diligently too, so we don't have the water leaks. People aren't getting the real high water bills. We're trying to do the back billing. We've been working on that. We sent one to a business and they're questioning it, so we're working with them on that to get the money from them, so.
So of the 70, I think it was 72 1.5-inch customers, how many of those have we back billed so far? Do you know?
I would have to say probably about 40 of them,
Oh, good. Okay.
so.
All right, and then just the other things I had. First, I just wanted to congratulate the Event House, who had an opening last week, which was awesome. It's going to be a great space. It's going to be a great draw for bringing people into Lathrup. It's a perfect size. You know, a lot of these event spaces are huge, and people don't want to rent a place that's quite that big. It's a good medium-sized facility, and they did a great job. Congratulate all my newly elected and re-elected council members. I'm really looking forward to working with this council, and really looking forward to be able to actually have good discussion, you know, on the various issues that we've got to face. I also want to offer my condolences to the Knight family. Some of you may know them. David Knight passed away a couple weeks ago, 40-year resident, and I actually knew him well, so condolences to the family. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll be quick because I'm pretty sure you have a speech. So,
Because what?
I'm pretty sure he has a speech. You know, it's
This
his
is what
first,
Kelly always says to Bruce. You're gonna
I
take
was gonna say, this is great. Off of me.
It's his first day, so I know he has a speech. But super excited to work with the new council. I'm glad that we have our mayor and mayor pro tem. I think you guys do a great job, and I'm looking forward to us just working together and repairing relationships. I'm sorry that Pam does not want to stay, but I'm looking forward to us figuring out that situation, because that has always been something that I've been concerned about, is the treasurer's succession. So really looking forward to working on that and seeing how we make that plan go through. So that's all I have.
Which one?
You can go with your speech first.
Okay, I'll try and be as quick as I can. So first of all, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to represent all the residents of Lathrup Village. I have every intention of doing what Ian suggested and reaching out to people, even who I had a difference of opinion with. And I hope that people are receptive to that, because that's really something that I want to do, is be part of bringing people together and not being divisive. Cohesive, yes, but not unanimous, right? This is, we're gonna have respectful debates, and differences of opinion will be discussed. And I think we occasionally will have unanimity, but not all the time, and I think we should all expect that. There are some important financial issues that Ms. Miller has brought up during her tenure, and even again tonight, and were highlighted in the audit, and we got to keep our eye on the ball relative to those things so that we can move forward in a transparent and confident way. And that's not a hit on Pam at all or anybody else in the staff. This is just a thing we have to do. I feel like Pam has done an amazing job, and I also am sad to see that you are leaving, because you've been a huge benefit to the city and have gone way above and beyond. And it's been said time and time again, but I don't think it can be said enough times. You make a huge difference in the city, and you will be missed. The 4 agreements, yes, I want to highlight do your best. Humans are flawed. We make mistakes. The mayor made one tonight and owned it, and you need to be able to do that. I am confident I will make a million mistakes in the 4 years that I'm on this council. When they happen, I will own them. I hope people will call me out when I make them, but give me the opportunity and the grace to try and do something to rectify. And finally, I'm just grateful for our leadership. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff that we got to do, and I am confident that we have the mayor and mayor pro tem to support us. And as a group, council, we're going to have difference of opinion, but any decision that we ultimately make, even if it's a 3-2 vote, we all have to stand behind it, and we all have to support the staff and enable them to be successful in executing the services that we hope the city will be able to deliver to all of our residents. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yeah.
I wanted to thank the residents for putting their trust in me, the ones that did enough. I know that I don't have much experience, but I appreciate people being willing to take a risk on me. I hope to be, at least seem and be approachable, think critically, and I like to try to keep things light. Because when it comes down to it, we're a very small city, and it would feel awkward for me to go back and forth with someone and not wave to them when I'm walking across the city. I hope to try to be as neutral as I can be and to help the citizens feel heard, and also to try to keep Pam. Thank you all.
Do you know anyone who could referee any disagreements that we may have? Somebody could throw a yellow flag every once in a while?
No.
No?
Oh wait, I might know somebody.
Yeah, in football, you throw a yellow flag?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I love it. We're adjourned.